when that thing clamps onto your head,
yes.
is that thing really there?
Excellent question.
Because it.
You've probably laughed at how impractical some movie costumes are, but imagine having to wear them. These are 15 actors who would have preferred a different look. Number 1. Tenoch Huerta even had a nickname for the shorts he wore as Namor.
I call them the shame shorts.
Huerta has admitted that he wasn't in the best shape when he received the news that he'd been cast in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and he only had about 5 months to prepare for his costume. Huerta joked that he tried to figure out a way to have Namor wearing more.
I asked for a whole suit, you know, with muscles included.
Oh, yeah.
Fortunately, his preparation for the role included plenty of swim training anyway.
Did you know how to swim before?
Yeah.
Tell the truth.
Number 2. You can't say that Tom Holland doesn't know his character. He's adopted a few costumes across his years of playing Spider-Man, but can you guess what his least favorite costume is? Believe it or not, it's the Iron Spider suit. As cool as it may have looked on screen, Holland found that the gauntlets limited his range of mobility in his wrists and caused bruising, something that he imagined Peter Parker wouldn't put up with.
Wait, imagine the bruises he must have on his poor
the
hair.
metal! Number 3. Harley's hot pants certainly started a conversation. When asked about her costume in Suicide Squad, Margot Robbie argued that Harley Quinn would wear the revealing shorts because they're sparkly and fun, but admitted that when it came to her own tastes, she wasn't a big fan of them. As she described it, eating burgers at lunchtime, and then going to do a scene where you're hosed down and soaking wet in a white t-shirt, made her feel self-conscious about it. Number 4. Can you guess what the least comfortable part of this suit is? Well, as Antony Starr described the supersuit on The Boys,
the comfortable bit starts at the neck and ends at the end of the boot.
The immense amount of padding inside Homelander's suit gets pretty hot. So it's outfitted with a system that pumps cool water through the tubes in a style that's common to the suits of race drivers. Starr says that it works pretty well, but makes a lot of noise, meaning that they have to turn it off during filming. Number 5. Accidents happen. Apparently, the entire cast of The Boys had a hard time going to the bathroom in their supersuits. But Erin Moriarty's bodysuit is especially difficult on account of how small it is, and because of the way her microphone is wound through. Every bathroom break takes her about 25 minutes, and as she puts it, it's left me in positions where, let's just say, I've gone back to the set and there have been articles of my costume that are a little wet. It happens. Number 6. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Elizabeth Olsen was grateful to hear that she didn't have to wear the Scarlet Witch's costume from the comics. But by the time they'd gotten to filming for Infinity War, she still felt that her costume hadn't evolved as much as she'd been promised. Olsen was especially upset seeing her co-stars' costumes, saying, "Everyone has these things that cover them. Tessa Thompson does, Scarlett does. I would like to cover up a bit." Considering her recent wardrobe for Doctor Strange, it would appear that production is taking her comments into consideration.
Thanks.
Number 7. Malin Åkerman had nothing good to say about her costume for Watchmen. She said that the latex was so binding that she compared it to,
It's like putting a condom over your whole body.
Apparently, the smell was terrible, and the fabric would magnify whatever temperature she was in, so that she was freezing outdoors and baking indoors. And when it came time to take the costume off,
I was so happy. People asked me if I kept the costume. You couldn't pay me enough money to keep that.
Number 8. We can see how this was embarrassing. There was a larger than normal gap between filming for the second Harry Potter film and the third, during which Matthew Lewis went through a growth spurt and lost his baby fat. Upon returning to set, it was determined that he would have to wear a fat suit, false teeth, large shoes, and inserts behind his ears. Lewis said that this was especially hard for him at the time. Being 15 years old, in the middle of puberty, having to wear a fat suit, there's girls around. But he's since made peace with it, adding that he's the luckiest man alive. Number 9. You never do get used to this.
Put inside this, rubber balaclava that is then glued to my face.
Paul Bettany has allowed himself to be suited up as Vision for a number of projects now, and yet he still has a hard time keeping himself calm in the restrictive costume. According to him, there's definitely a meditative place you need to get into just to be in that costume that often, although he has admitted to having one claustrophobic freakout in all the years he's been doing it. Number 10. These were some awkward beginnings. Scarlett Johannson has admitted that she wasn't a fan of Black Widow's costume for Iron Man 2, stating in an interview with Bravo, "Look at the thing. I mean, who wants to get into something like that?" Apparently, the costume was enough to make Johansson wonder, what the hell was I doing in this franchise? Although she's since managed to gain more control over Black Widow's wardrobe. Number 11. Would you have guessed that the Iron Man helmet was real? Robert Downey Jr.'s first few Marvel movies tried to use as little CGI as possible, but there was one problem with that. The prop helmet had LED lights attached to it, and whenever they'd turn on,
I was absolutely blinded.
by the time he came to film Avengers Endgame, production could barely get him to wear the helmet at all.
Hey, Robert, would you mind putting on the helmet? No? Yes? No. Put 2 dots here and then you can paint it in later.
So they mostly relied on CGI. Number 12. You could hardly even tell that was Oscar Isaac in the movie. His costume for X-Men Apocalypse weighed about 40 pounds and required a lot of maintenance that made it difficult for him to interact with the other actors on set, even though Isaac had been excited to work with them. He couldn't turn his head and could barely even walk wearing high heels inside of a boot. Looking back on the experience, the only way Isaac could describe it was
Apocalypse. That was excruciating.
Number 13. Those furs looked uncomfortable. When talking about his costume for Game of Thrones, Kit Harrington complained,
"You know, it weighs a ton. It smells awful."
He went on to joke that the costume designer just kept adding weight because she wanted him to hate the experience by the end of it. And there is truth to the fact that his costume got heavier over time. According to the costume designer herself, Harrington's cape was lighter in earlier seasons to reflect his lesser status within the family, and it was later made heavier to help give him a necessary stature. Number 14. CGI supersuits just aren't a good idea. Far from making the process of filming Green Lantern easier, Ryan Reynolds would complain that the motion capture suit was more uncomfortable than the actual suit would be. And while, at the time, he expressed hope that the technology would make it worth it, he would later go on to mock the movie's use of CGI, even taking a direct shot at his costume for Green Lantern in the movie Deadpool, with the line,
"And please don't make the supersuit green or animated."
Number 15. Playing the Grinch wasn't as fun as it looked. Reflecting on the film's makeup process, which could sometimes take up to 8.5 hours a day, Jim Carrey said,
"Literally, the makeup was like being buried alive every day."
To help him cope, producer Brian Grazer brought in a specialist who trained the CIA in methods to end torture. He provided Carrey with tips like eating or turning on the TV and changing his pattern if, at any point, he starts to feel like he's freaking out or spiraling downwards while the makeup was on. While there are times where style trumps comfort, some of these costumes may have taken that a little far. Which movie outfit seems like it'd be the most uncomfortable to you?